So hello there, I'm back with my last session. So today we're going to discuss about biomimetic architecture or biomimetic buildings. Before I get into this, let me also point out that my earlier sessions are there in the link below, you can always visit. So as far as building and construction is concerned, it contributes to about 39% of the carbon emission. So in that, the energy consumption comes from lighting and warming and cooling part of it takes a lot of energy consumption happens there. Also, so there is a lot of decarbonization possibility of energy grid here, and also we can have the possibility of buildings as local energy grids. So there are a lot of innovations which is happening in that field. We should be discussing that also. And then the another where the carbon emission is very intensive is construction material. So when we talk about construction material, it is in terms of embedded carbon in terms of manufacturing, like cement or brick, or supplying of construction material, or even the construction process itself. So now we are having a lot of restrictions in terms of, United Nations talks about decreasing the carbon dioxide emission by 7.6% every year till 2030 to stay within 1.5% of temperature rise. So we are having a concept of net zero carbon building or green building or LEED or GRIHA ratings, and so things are getting a lot of restrictions are coming out, and sustainable and in a Paris Agreement, United Nations Sustainable Goal Agreement, there is a urgent need for new technological framework as far as buildings are concerned, and so sustainable buildings are not an option but has become a necessity, and this is precisely the context of this particular session, and we'll discuss certain strategies which can be emulated from nature in terms of innovative sustainable solutions. So this particular slide succinctly put the challenge in perspective. So what was once a forest or a habitat teeming with species or biodiversity that provided ecosystem services is now concrete buildings, or what we call, ironically, it is called concrete jungle, and not very ironically is adding to the pressure on Earth's ecosystem itself. So there is what we are looking at is a breakdown of life nurturing systems, and we really cannot go back to forests in the sense that we cannot destroy buildings and go back to forest. Of course, we can have gardens and we can have vertical terrace gardens or indoor plants, which are all examples of biophilia. So when we are talking about biomimicry, we are the challenge for us is we need buildings that provide all the ecosystem services that the forest did, or the trees, or let's say trees did. So what does the tree do? It provides fresh air, and it does rainwater harvesting and sequester carbon, prevents soil erosions, and also most importantly it nurtures biodiversity. As you're probably aware, as the diversity decreases, the biodiversity decreases, there is it reduces the resilience of the ecosystem, and it will have a dire impact on the survivability of human beings later on. So when nature is taken as a model, as a reference, the benchmark set is quite high. So the challenge we have is to have buildings that function as in the larger context or the larger system called Earth. Buildings that are not rigid structures as we have now, that is confined to inputs and responses, but learn from nature to adapt and replenish. Buildings that need to be kind of dynamic, whether responding to nature like plants to capture sunrise, or responding to human beings that is aware of human presence and intent. See, the reason why we like walking, or we find walking in the garden or forest pleasant, is because there is a dynamic presence. There is an acknowledgement, a response, and interaction with the surrounding. It kind of becomes an extension of ourself rather than demarcated structures. So we need to have buildings that emulate nature, therefore needs to be permeable, which means there is a constant interaction and exchange with us. It must create a sense of belonging. It must make us feel empowered and creating a unique experience of connecting with our surrounding in a nurturing way. We cannot really address the climate change without thinking about buildings. And as I mentioned earlier, 39% of the carbon emission is happening through building and construction activities. So out of this, 28% is through HVAC, that is heating, ventilation and air conditioning, which is of course fossil fuel dependent. And apart from that, 40% of the solid waste which is coming through construction and development activities, and which is also a major contributor for air pollution and particulate matter. And apart from that, debris and oil and paints which is leaking to the environment. So the point here is buildings are huge energy consumption units, and biomimetic buildings offer a lot of possibilities, and many have been applied also. So this 60% of the energy consumption is in a building happens in heating and space cooling, and as the extreme climate change or extreme change temperature differences happen due to climate change, there's going to be a lot of pressure in terms of in energy. In fact, what happened yesterday or day before, in Texas, that extreme climate event leading to failure of grid. So this kind of events are expected to happen, and electricity demand for building is set to increase exponentially with extreme climate and population pressure. So the point here is to understand climate change, or to ameliorate or mitigate, or to even to adapt to climate change. Building is one important area which needs attention. So of course we need to reduce our carbon footprint, and building becomes a very important area of focus. But as the extreme weather event increases, are set to increase, and have already started happening, building becomes a major focus area, and for adapting to climate change. And so adaptive building becomes an area of attention. For instance, flooding and waterlogging directly impacts homes and infrastructures. So that is where the adaptive building comes in, and what insights can nature offer becomes a very important focus area. So as far as adaptive buildings are concerned, and as the extreme weather events are expected to rise, there are two areas which need attention. One is resilience, which nature can teach us, and second is the functional recoverability. And when we talk about resilience, we need a lot of improvement in technology and design. And resilience works at two levels. One is the sudden damage, that is extreme event impact, like the one which you saw happening in Himalayas, where the glacier weakened and collapsed, and which led to a lot of flooding, flash floods. So second is metal degradation due to long-term impact of water logging. So these are the events which is set to increase as the extreme weather pattern increases. So therefore, as resilience becomes a very important area, and where nature can help us to adapt. The functional recoverability after the disaster also becomes an area of serious investigation, because after the disaster we need our bridges, our hospitals, even houses and homes to recover as fast as possible. So how we can have functional recoverability of infrastructure and resilience both becomes very important area when we are focusing on adaptive buildings. So with recurrence and increased intensity of climate change instigated natural disasters, or let's be more specific, anthropogenic disasters, there is a urgent need for adaptive strategies like emergency temporary shelters, which is stable and durable. So what United Nations High Commission for Refugees, that is UNHCR, has been doing in the war-torn areas, or where there has been natural disasters, what they've been doing is that they've been providing plastic sheets and with aluminum poles. Now, what really happened here is that the poor people, what they did was that they sold the aluminum poles, and they started cutting the tree branches for structural support. So this is what really was happening, and until in 1994, what happened was that there was a Japanese architect called Shigeru Ban. He created this concept of paper tube emergency shelters, which are not only structurally strong but also fire resistant and waterproof, and they are also cost effective material options, and can be manufactured cheaply, and can also be manufactured in remote areas which is inaccessible, which is where most of the natural disaster, which is what the scenario is. So this has been now quite effectively used in many of the as temporary shelters, many of the earthquake disaster zones like Kobe, Turkey and China, Haiti and New Zealand. So this particular emergency shelter, paper tube emergency shelter, very closely follows the biomimetic principles of nature's unifying pattern of life principles, like using low energy or resource efficient processes, readily available material and energy. So it also incorporates multifunctional design, as you can see from the pictures here, and also it is an attempt at fitting form to function, also keeping material in closed loop. So kind of a biomimetic principles behind is temporary shelters. So as mentioned, in the aftermath of natural disasters, functional recoverability becomes an important adaptive criteria for structures. And emergency structures are effective options. And after 3D printing, after the invention of 3D printing, there has been a revolution which is happening in the manufacturing process, and now it is revolutionizing the construction industry as well. So you can print 3D, you can 3D print houses in 30 minutes, and which is faster and efficient structures. And when time is a criteria in the aftermath of natural disasters, this is a significant innovation. So not only it is efficient and faster, it is also using bio-based sustainable materials or bioplastics, which is from vegetable oils or even recycled materials. So also there is no transport cost or the fossil fuel consumption, since design can simply be transferred digitally and printed locally. So there is an ease of deployment, unlike panelized constructions or pre-manufactured houses that have on-site assembly and transportation issues. So also 3D printing houses respond to local context with local material. Now this is in keeping with the biomimetic principle of life pattern, unifying patterns of building from bottom up, and that is how the life also grows. So as the world faces imminent threat of climate change related disasters, there is an explosion of creative architecture solution which you can find, and you also find futuristic designs of buildings. Uh, this is a this example here is a biomimetic architecture of the one which is emulating water lilies, and that has been proposed as urban housing solution for climate displaced people. More appropriately, it should be climate refugees. As the sea level rises due to global warming inundating coastal areas, there are a lot of solutions which is available, and you could find many of these remarkable, interesting biomimetic building solutions online. So, having had a glimpse of climate adaptive biomimetic buildings, now let's shift our attention to climate mitigative biomimetic buildings. And we'll look at we'll study at this at three levels. So one is emulating shape or design, and second would be a process, and that is how nature creates things or solves problems, and the process as emulation, and the last one is systemic. Now, in the first session, we discussed about three approaches to biomimicry, that is shape, process, and system. You can also visit my earlier sessions. All right. So when we speak about biomimetic shape designed architecture, the example which comes to the mind is a very popular building in London, a skyscraper in London, which was inaugurated in 2004, and this is called 30 St. Mary's Axe, which is popularly known as Gherkin because it's shaped like a gherkin. And this has been emulated from Venus flower basket sponge, as you can see on the left side here. And this Venus flower basket sponge survives in sea depth due to its lattice-like exoskeleton and round shape, and that provides the stiffness and disperse the forces of strong current which is seen in the ocean bed. Now the silica skeleton forms the hollow basket shape through which the seawater is filtered for nutrients. The gherkin mimics the shape and lattice structure of the sponge to do in air what the sponge does in water. So if you look at the structure on the right side, the building, it is round shape of building which reduces the wind deflection and creates an external pressure differential. Now this becomes a source, as you can see on the left side down, it creates a pressure differential which drives the natural ventilation system. There's a drawing here, and so air can flow around the building more smoothly. And unlike the buildings which you see in the background, which is square shaped or rectilinear. So also the lattice-like diagonally structure, which is also called diagrid structures, it creates an efficient vertical support. So when it creates an efficient vertical support, there is no need for interior columns or pillars. So it provides open space without interior columns, and helps in natural lighting and air circulation. So Venus fly basket, it's the same way Venus fly basket, flower basket support itself in ocean floor, and also this has become so popular that it has also become part of environmental movement. As you can see the cartoon here, picture here, where the polar bear is standing on the Gherkin building, symbolizing sustainable building, to fight. This was a protest against Heathrow Airport, in fact, and so it has become a part of popular culture. So it's a very good example of shape as a biomimetic structure. So another example of biomimetic shaped architecture is that of Waterloo railway station, where it was quite an irregular shape and curving site. So as the train enters the platform, there was different changes in air pressure, and the glass panels are fixed to mimic scaly pangolin, and which was able to respond to the pressure. So another example of nature as a source for inspiration, or shape as a source for biomimetic structures. So another example here is that of Esplanade Theatre in Singapore, where they wanted to build a building which was responding to or reflecting local culture and environment and the tropical climate. So they took emulation from durian tropical fruit, and the spikes of this fruit provides unique shading strategy against hot climate. So they created this structure, and spikes were used as sun shield, and also a source for natural lighting, and was placed along the movement of the sun for enhanced cooling, which reduces the HVAC usage, and also it gave a sense of tranquility and aesthetic appeal. So another very good example of biomimetic shaped buildings. So like stacked tiles in case of Waterloo railway station that emulated pangolin, we have a very interesting example of a building which is emulating armadillos. So it so happened that a home in Singapore was located next to a busy highway. So noise and dust and privacy was a major concern. So instead of erecting ugly wall to block these, the designer decided to take inspiration from nature, and armadillos became the biological model for the design. And as you can see here on the right side, they created aesthetic design that not only prevented noise, dust, and created a private space, but also it did not shut out the natural light or building unpleasant wall. So it's a very interesting example for everyday example of biomimetic buildings. So now we have discussed the shape aspect of mitigated buildings. Now we'll discuss about the process, the way it is created. So we have already had a discussion on lightweighting, biomimicry and lightweighting, and where we discussed about lightweighting strategies which is followed in nature. In that context, we have had a discussion on lightweight architecture, where we discussed about bird skull inspired and seashell inspired structures. So these are structures which is using less material, and it is putting material where it is needed and taking away material where it is not needed. So these kind of designs are there in nature which uses less material to create the same function. So this is part of process, the mitigated building, where we are using the process which is followed in nature. So continuing with the lightweight structure, this is a very famous example of Bird Nest National Stadium in Beijing, China, which was inaugurated for the 2008 Olympics. I'm sure most of you must have seen this. Now this aesthetic building or aesthetic structure was inspired and emulating the bird nest. So it created a lightweight structure, and also there was natural lighting, and there was opening in the facade which created natural ventilation, and there was also acoustic insulation, and self-cleaning panels were used. So overall it was very good example of the way process is used for biomimetic buildings. So the other day I had cut this banana plant, and this is the stem, the pseudo stem of the banana plant, and a cross section of that. I found the structure quite interesting. It's a lightweight structure which is performing all the functions. So I thought it was an interesting slide to put in this particular session. So the Eastgate Center in Harare, in Zimbabwe, which was designed by architect Mike Pierce, is an excellent example of biomimetic building that is emulating nature's process. So here they are using natural air conditioning methods, which is inspired by the termites. And as you can look, I can see here the termite mound is so high, and temperature ranges very high during the daytime because of the sun, as well as the termites actually form fungus, which is their main source of food. So all that put together, the temperature as well as the carbon dioxide increases very high, and during the night the temperature drops down. So there's a huge variation of temperature, but they have to maintain a particular temperature for it to survive. So they do that by plugging and unplugging heating and cooling vents on the surface of the termite mounds. So they manipulate the convection currents. So the same methodology, the same idea is emulated in this building here, the Eastgate Center. It's a very famous example, and you can read about it, how the termite mounds actually functions and how it is emulated. So for nature, carbon dioxide is a building block, but for human being, carbon dioxide has become a problem, and it's become a serious problem as it is instigating this climate change disaster which we are facing. Now, cement industry has almost 8% of the total carbon dioxide emission footprint. And the reason for that is the cement industry's main ingredient is calcium carbonate or limestone, which is as similar to the carbon which is trapped for millions of years, which is similar to the fossil fuel, the diesel and petrol. So the same trapped carbon for millions of years has been released. So that is the main reason why the carbon footprint is high for cement industry. So what Kalera has done is that it's trying to emulate the nature itself by trying to by capturing the carbon dioxide or sequestering carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and creating cement out of it, or creating limestone out of it, which is used for manufacturing cement. The whole process is turned upside down. So for every ton of cement produced, half a ton of carbon dioxide is sequestered, which is what Kalera is claiming. So here is an example where we are trying to emulate we are emulating the nature to create sustainable solutions. Self-healing is what life is all about. So if you look at your skin, or if you look at the tree, if you crack your skin, if you hurt your skin, it self-heals. Nature always heals itself rather than replacing or throwing away things. So similar is the case here of self-healing concrete. So here, instead of because if conventional concrete, what happens if there's a crack, you have to repair it, and there's a whole huge cost involved, or otherwise you have to demolish and rebuild it. But here we are having this example of self-healing concrete, which is emulating the nature. And here, instead of coarse bits of sand, which is conventionally used in traditional cement mix, they use microfibers, and this microfibers does not allow the cement to crack. So in case there's a crack, it tends to bend. Of course, if there's a crack, the cracks are very smaller or reduced sized. So what happens is that after that, the concrete tends to grow itself or self-heal. Now how does it happen is that the calcium ions within the crack absorbs the moisture and the carbon dioxide from air, and in the process it creates calcium carbonate or limestone, which is actually the main ingredient of cement. And this is where it helps in solidifying. So it's a self-healing concrete is now becoming quite popular, and it is a biomimetic process which is being emulated here. I'm sorry, the natural process which is emulated here. So another quite interesting, sustainable, innovative solution using nature's process is biomason bricks. Now what they're doing is that they're using sand and with the help of a bacteria in a process which utilizes nitrogen and calcium, they grow bricks. So the bricks are grown, and like the coral reefs or the seashells. Now this particular innovation has huge implications, because see, brick is the lowest common denominator in any construction, and 80% of the global construction uses brick. In fact, estimate shows that 1.3 trillion bricks are produced world over. And so how is the brick produced? They are using clay from the ground, and they are using high temperature for hardening. and this is like 2000 degrees centigrade for 4 to 5 days, and which estimated to produce 800 million tons of carbon pollution into atmosphere per year, which is more than the pollution produced by aeroplanes or aircrafts in a year. So there's huge carbon footprint. Also, the clay which is used is taking away the top layer for agricultural land use. So this innovation has a lot of possibilities. So many burrowing species have created strategies for passive ventilation through from the available wind. So here, which can be emulated for in our buildings also. Here, this example here is that of prairie dogs. Now, prairie dogs are not dogs. They are actually rodent species which is found in the central northern part of America, and they live in the plains. So they create burrows which can be as long as 32 feet in length, and they have to harness wind energy from the windy plains. So what they do is that, at the lower when the wind at the nearer to the ground is much lower on the surface compared to the one on the elevated side. So what they create is that they create elevated opening and lower openings, and which creates a pressure differential. And as the air passes at the higher velocity at the elevated opening, it creates a low pressure, as you must have studied that in Bernoulli's principles in school. So this creates pressure differential and creates natural ventilation. So a lot of examples like this where we utilize the natural forces to create air conditioning as well as natural ventilations, and without using fossil fuel. So this is Buckminster Fuller, and I'm sure most of you might be aware of him. An absolutely incredible person whom I should have spent more time talking about him in my earlier session on biomimetic lightweighting. He was an iconic designer, innovator of 20th century. What is exciting about him is that his talks are available online on YouTube, and I strongly suggest that you see it. And he was a multifaceted, brilliant man. If you want to really encapsulate his ideas in one sentence, it will be doing more with less. So he worked tirelessly to replace metal with design, moving from track to trackless and wire to wireless, which is where the world is moving. And this he suggested in 1940s and 50s. And he is known to have created Diamex in homes, and Diamexin is a portmanteau of dynamic maximize tension, and modular homes, which has now become quite relevant, and Diamex in cars. And all this points to sustainable way of thinking. And in fact, he is famous for geodesic domes, which is what you see in this picture here, which is what he's holding, and is a lightweight, easy to assemble, cost-effective structure, which effectively distributes stress within structure, and is ability to withstand harsh environment. So a lot of structures are designed on geodesic domes. In fact, there was a compound C60 which is a soccer ball shaped, and it is named after him. It is called Buckminster Fullerene. And he studied nature very closely and to understand how nature designs structures. He emphasized a systems approach to problem solving, and he is famous to have coined the term spaceship Earth, where he emphasized a systems approach, and emphasized that the world as an interconnected system with interconnected problems which needs collective actions. An amazing man, and please try to find more about him and read more about him. So it was Buckminster Fuller who gave this term tensegrity, and that is tension integrity. We've had a discussion of that in Nature's Strategy for Lightweighting, that is biomimetic lightweighting. You can always visit that particular session. So this tensegrity is structures with floating compression that gain strength from codes under tension. And we have a lot of architecture which is using lightweight materials or using tensegrity as a strategy. In fact, geodesic domes are a very example of tensegrity. So Buckminster Fullerene has been able to kind of give us insight into how nature functions, and tensegrity is also what we see in nature very often, and in our whole body itself is an example of tensegrity. So we've had a discussion on combined modular and nested components from simple to complex. So it's a life principle where we closely emulate nature's unifying pattern. So it is not only for interiors of buildings or of offices, but also for the whole idea of constructing buildings. So where so much, many times we come across huge buildings, which is created but remain vacant for a long time. This is a huge waste. There's a huge investment which is happening in terms of manpower, in terms of a lot of energy consumption which is happening. So we need to emulate nature in terms of you construct what is to be needed to be utilized. So it need not be kept vacant. So this is something which need to be thought about. So Buckminster Fuller thought about Damaxin shelters as Damaxin modular homes right in 1950s and 60s. But now in recent times there's a lot of movement towards temporary shelters. This is we have had a discussion of that. This is in aftermath of natural disasters. We discussed about paper tube shelters and 3D printed mass-produced shelters. But the whole idea of living and the living space is moving towards emulating nature. That is moving towards modular way of living. So here is an example of foldable, modular, affordable tiny homes. So another form of biomimetic building is the one which emulates nature's moving mechanism or kinetic mechanism. So you have a lot of examples like folding of Mimosa pudica leaves, or folding of beetle wings, or iris in the eyes, or unfolding of petals. So all these have been emulated, and this example which you see here is that of Qingzhang Forest Sports City Arena in China, where it is actually emulating the blooming of magnolia flowers. And here we have 8 sliding steel roofs or kinetic facades, which are movable kinetic facades, and this rotates at the same time over one fulcrum. Therefore, a good example of emulating biological moving mechanism which is seen in nature. So when we are designing buildings for hotter climate, there is a challenge. The challenge is that of windows. On the one side, we want windows for natural lighting as well as to see outside. There is an aesthetic consideration, but this comes at an expense of heat getting transferred. So there is a heat which can be coming in through the windows into the building. So we need buildings that allows natural lighting but must prevent or control heat gains. So that is the problem here, and this example here of a plant, and which is quite appropriately called window plant, which is found in South Africa, works on the same principle as fiber optics. So this particular plant are found buried in sands. Most of the part of the plant is underneath the earth, and the tips of every leaf is transparent. It's like a light transparent membrane is there on tip of every leaf, and light enters through this end and can travel down the leaf, as you can see from the picture here on the right side. And this mechanism helps plant to keep itself cool, and also helps in light collection, uh, and therefore it provides an inspiration for innovative architectural design. And with extreme climate, the temperature of the planet is set to rise, and we need such inspiration from different sources. And these kind of strategies from plants will serve as a benchmark for sustainable building design. So having looked at biomimetic buildings in context to emulating shape and process, now let's look at buildings that is emulating and are part of nature system. At the core of nature's design is a circular system, and that is connected to each other and everything in the world. Understanding that Earth is a system, we need to have buildings that is independently and collectively meets our environmental as well as societal needs. So the building designers or architects or civil engineers need to have a deeper understanding of ecological system, and strive to integrate it into building designs and spaces. So these are examples from different part of the world where buildings are evolving as part of the system. So can we have cities with zero waste? And can we have cities where buildings produce positive impact? Buildings that sequesters carbons and use far less material, emit no pollution. It's a shift, it's an attitudinal shift. We are moving from industrial age to ecological age. So we need to ask questions like, is our building designed to shape? That is, no material is wasted. Is the shape of the building and the forms within provides for the function? When we talk about function, it is multifunction also. So can we use more of shape and information instead of material and energy? Does the design reuse material or recycled material? So these are the questions we have to face when we are moving towards biomimetic systems. So building as a biomimetic system can be seen as a holistic attempt, but in the recent time there has been a movement towards integrating building parts to the surrounding. And here we have two examples where the facade is being used, and the facade is actually the outer covering or the layer of the building. So here the facade is in a close loop with the surrounding. So two examples, one is bioskin facade and another is homeostatic facade. The bioskin facade is the building which was inaugurated in Germany. It is called BIQ building in Hamburg, Germany, which is BIQ stands for Biointelligent Quotient, and it uses living bioskin. It uses one which is powered by algae, and this algae, what it does is that it uses sunlight and captures the carbon dioxide and does photosynthesis, and in the process create heat energy, which is stored and used to warm building and rooms and water, and in the process it also creates biomass, which is used for biogas, as well as the substrate of that is used for nutritious food supplements. So there's a whole range of things which is happening where the building is interacting with this. It's a living system. The building becomes a living system, and in the process it's sequestering carbon and heating the building and creating nutritious food supplement and creating also producing biogas. So it's a complete package here, and a successful experiment which has happened in Hamburg. The next example is homeostatic facade, and homeostatic, as probably know, is a biological term which is used where the body maintains a steady internal physical and chemical balance, which is maintained by the living system. So similar to the body physical system, the building is also maintaining a kind of a balance, regulates its temperature and through homeostasis. So what happens here is that the building, as you can see on the right side here, it has elastomer which is wrapped in a flexible polymer. So it's as you can see the swirling lines here. So as the sunlight warms the interior of the building, the elastomer expands and blocks the sunlight, and when the interior cools, the contraction happens and allows more sunlight to come. So there's a thermoregulation which is happening and reducing the energy consumption and emissions. So in the process, it's creating a sustainable. As also, there's a complete involvement with the surrounding. The building is a living building. The facade is creating a living building, and it automatically adjusts to the changing environment, sunlight or temperature. Even we can take it to the carbon dioxide level. So if the concentration of the carbon dioxide in the building increases, it can sense that and it can take action. So these are two examples of facade where the building is in close loop with the surrounding. So apart from building parts like facade, even the addition to the buildings can be biomimetic innovations that systemically integrate with earth. We have a very fine example here of carpet, that is entropy carpet or non-directional carpet by interface, that has revolutionized the carpet tile industry. So what they did was that they studied the forest floor where the leaves are scattered randomly due to wind and gravity, thus carpeting the landscape. This they took as the inspiration as an emulation, and they created this entropy carpet. So the idea here actually contributed in terms of reducing manufacturing, installation, and replacement waste. So the carpet tiles can be placed in any order in any direction. So you don't have to have a pattern, and individual tiles can be replaced without the need for recarpet the entire room. So even the dye matching need not be. So there is a huge advantage here, and it has reduced the waste which is contributed by the carpet industry. So we also have other examples of biomimetic additions to the building as a system. So we have Ornilux glasses, which we studied earlier, where it was emulated from the spider web, and UV strands were introduced into the glasses, which prevented the birds dying due to crashing into the glasses. And also other example is Lotusan paints, which is self-cleaning paints, which is inspired or emulated from lotus leaves, and which reduces the use of water as well as extending the age of the paints. And then we also have other example of swarm intelligent homes where the gadget inside the house communicate with each other to create optimal energy solutions, like the bees inside the hive. So there are different examples of systems which adds on to biomimetic buildings. So that finishes my biomimicry sessions. I sincerely hope you enjoyed it. Before I leave, I would like to strongly recommend these three books. And these three books are path-breaking in their own right. So the first one is Silent Spring by Rachel Carson, which I think most of you might have read. And then we have Biomimicry Innovation Inspired by Nature by Janine Benyus. And then Sixth Extinction by Elizabeth Colbert. These three books are not only insightful but also provides context and urgency towards the need for sustainable solutions. So as mentioned earlier, I am available for workshops, seminars and talks, and you can always contact me. The email is given down. But let me clarify that because of the pandemic, I'll not be traveling. So many of you have contacted me, and I have mentioned this. So at least for this year, 2021, and of course after the vaccination maybe, but I don't think that is going to happen in 2021. So let's keep it at abeyance and let's enjoy the videos.